The first thing my daughter said before she slammed the front door was, "Your place is in the bin." I stood there on the footpath in Parramatta, with a duffel bag at my feet, my keys still in my hand, trying to understand how a house I'd paid off 20 years earlier had somehow become a place I wasn't allowed back into. It was nearly midnight. A southerly had pushed in from the harbour, sharp enough to bite through my shirt. Upstairs, the bedroom light flicked on. I could see her shadow moving behind the curtain. Then it disappeared. I didn't knock. I just stood there, staring at the jacaranda tree in the front yard. I planted it when Ellie was 6, back when she used to wait by the window every Friday for me to come home from work at the rail depot. Back when she still called me Dad like it meant something. My phone buzzed. A message from Ellie. "Don't make this harder than it already is." That was all. No explanation. No apology. No warning that her boyfriend, Ryan, would step between us like a nightclub bouncer and tell me I was upsetting her. No mention of the fact I'd spent the last 11 months covering the mortgage repayments, because she'd said work at the marketing firm in North Sydney had dried up. I picked up the bag and walked. By the time I reached Church Street, most places were shutting. A kebab shop still had the lights on. 2 blokes outside a pub were arguing over a taxi. I kept going until I found a bench near the river. That's where I sat until dawn. At 6:30, I rang my younger sister, Janine. She answered on the second ring. "Tom?" I hadn't spoken to her in 4 months. Not since Christmas. She heard something in my silence. What happened? My daughter threw me out. There was a pause, then only one word. "Why?" I looked across the water. "I don't know." Janine lived in Cronulla. By 9, I was on her couch with a mug of bad instant coffee and a blanket over my knees, feeling older than 62. She didn't ask much at first. Just watched me. Then she said, "You've been giving Ellie money again, haven't you?" I didn't answer. That's a yes. She needed help. She always needs help. I felt the sting because I knew Janine wasn't wrong. 3 years earlier, after my wife Claire died from a stroke, Ellie had started dropping by more often. At first it felt like grief. Shared grief. She'd cook dinner, stay late, ask if I was sleeping all right. Then came the smaller things. A car repayment she was short on. A bond issue. A credit card. A few thousand here. A few thousand there. She always cried when she asked. Always looked ashamed. And every time, I told myself it was temporary. Janine leaned forward. "Tom, did you ever actually look at your bank statements?" That landed strangely. "What do you mean?" She got up, disappeared into the spare room, and came back holding my old blue folder. I frowned. "What's that doing here?" "You left it after Mum's funeral." She handed it over. Inside were photocopies. My signatures, my account details, mortgage documents, and then I saw it. A transfer authorization dated 7 months earlier. My name was on it, but I hadn't signed it. My stomach tightened. "Janine," I said quietly, "where did you get these?" She looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen since we buried Claire. "Because," she said, 2 weeks ago, Ellie came here asking if I knew whether you'd changed your will." The room went cold, and for the first time since my daughter threw me out, I realized this hadn't started last night. It had started months ago, maybe longer. Then Janine said the one thing that made my blood stop. "Tom, I don't think Ellie wanted the house." She swallowed. "I think she wanted you gone." For a few seconds, I honestly thought Janine had lost her mind. "What are you talking about?" My voice came out thin, almost embarrassed. "She's my daughter." Janine didn't flinch. "And you're still thinking like her father instead of a man who got pushed onto the street." I stared at the forged transfer form again. My name looked right at first glance, but the longer I looked, the more obvious it became. The loop on the T was wrong. The tail on the M was too neat. Ellie had watched me sign enough birthday cards and bank slips to copy it. Not perfectly, just well enough. My chest tightened. "She wouldn't," I said. But even as I said it, something ugly was already moving through me. Janine slid her laptop across the coffee table. Look. She'd already logged into the land title search. I didn't understand what I was seeing at first. Then she pointed. A loan had been registered against my house. 6 months earlier, $80,000. I felt my ears ringing. No. You didn't know? I shook my head. Then who signed for it, Tom? I couldn't answer. The room suddenly felt smaller. I could hear traffic outside. Kids walking past toward the beach. A dog barking somewhere down the street. Ordinary sounds. The kind that made the moment feel even less real. I grabbed my phone and rang Ellie. Straight to voicemail. I rang again, voicemail. Then a message came through. Don't do this. Ryan says if you keep harassing me, we'll call the police. I read it twice. Harassing me. I changed her nappies. Sat beside her hospital bed when she broke her arm at 12. Sold my fishing boat when university fees got tight. And now I was harassment. Janine took the phone from my hand before I could throw it. Listen to me. You need facts before you go near that house again. Ryan, I muttered. What about him? He came along about a year ago. Said he was in property development. Always talking big. Bondi clients. Newcastle deals. Gold Coast investors. I looked at her. Claire hated blokes like that. Janine's face hardened. Did he ever ask about your finances? I thought back. Barbecues in the backyard. Him topping up my beer. Casual questions. How much had I got from the depot payout? Was the house fully mine? Did I ever think of downsizing? At the time, it felt harmless. Now, every conversation felt like a survey. That afternoon, while Janine was out, I went through the blue folder again. Tucked in the back was something I hadn't noticed before. A folded pharmacy receipt. Not mine. Ellie's name was on it. Dated 3 months earlier. Underneath it was a small handwritten note in Claire's old cursive. If Tom ever starts forgetting things again, tell Dr. Harris immediately. I stopped breathing for a second. Forgetting things. Claire had written that 6 weeks before she died. My mind started racing. The missed appointments. Ellie insisting on helping with paperwork. Her suddenly taking over my mail. Ryan joking about me being a bit forgetful these days. It hadn't been random. They weren't just taking money. They were building a story. And right then my phone rang. Private number. I answered. A man's voice. Calm. Controlled. Mr. Lawson? Yes, this is Michael Harris. I'm sorry to call like this. But your daughter came to see me last month. My grip tightened. She wanted a letter, he said. A letter saying what? There was a long silence. Then he said quietly, that you might not be mentally fit to manage your own affairs. I couldn't speak. And then he said the one thing that turned my blood to ice. She told me you'd already agreed. For a moment, all I could hear was my own breathing. What did you tell her? I asked. Michael Harris cleared his throat. I told her I wouldn't sign anything without seeing you first. She seemed unhappy about that. Did she say why? She said you'd become confused. Paranoid. That you were forgetting bills, losing track of dates. She made it sound urgent. I closed my eyes. It was clever, not dramatic. Not some wild accusation that would fall apart under daylight. Just enough doubt. Just enough concern. The kind of lie that sounded responsible. When was this? 4 weeks ago. 4 weeks. 4 weeks before Ellie threw me out. I thanked him and ended the call. My hand was shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. When Janine came home, I told her everything. She didn't look surprised. That was the worst part. I think they were setting up guardianship, she said. The word landed like a brick. No. Tom, listen to yourself. The loan. The forged signatures. The questions about the will. A medical letter saying you can't manage your affairs. She leaned closer. That's not panic. That's planning. I stood up and paced the living room. No. Ellie wouldn't go that far. Then why'd she put you on the street? I had no answer. That night I barely slept. Around 2 in the morning I got up, took Janine's spare keys and drove back to Parramatta. I told myself I only wanted answers. The street was silent when I pulled up half a block away. My house looked different from the dark. Not like home. Like something I used to own, A light was on downstairs. I crossed the road and stopped beside the side gate. Then I heard voices, Ellie and Ryan. I don't know why I stayed. Maybe because some part of me still believed there had to be an explanation that didn't destroy everything. Ryan was laughing. "You should seen him," he said. Standing there with that bloody bag. Looked completely lost. Ellie didn't laugh straight away. "He'll calm down." "No, he won't. That's why you have to stick to the story." A pause, then Ellie spoke, quieter. "I didn't think he'd call Janine. He doesn't matter," Ryan said. "The loan clears next week, then we're fine." My skin went cold. Then Ellie said something that split me open. "What if he checks the accounts?" Ryan snorted. "He won't. Your dad still thinks you're 12. I felt something inside me buckle. Not anger, not yet. Just this crushing, stupid grief. Then Ellie said, "I never wanted it to go like this." Ryan's voice sharpened. "You wanted the apartment in Manly, remember? You wanted out. This is how people do it." There was silence. Then I heard my daughter ask the question I'll remember until the day I die. "And if he won't sign?" Ryan answered immediately. "Then we prove he's losing it." I don't remember stepping back. I only remember suddenly being at the front of the house, staring at the upstairs window, trying not to be sick. My phone buzzed in my pocket, unknown number. I nearly ignored it. "Hello, Mr. Lawson," a woman said. "This is Natalie from Commonwealth Bank Fraud Prevention." I couldn't speak. "We've detected unusual activity on your account. A transfer request was lodged tonight for $63,000. I gripped the fence so hard my knuckles hurt. "Was it approved?" "No," she said. "We flagged it because the IP address originated from inside your registered home address." I looked up at the lit kitchen window. And then, through the glass, I saw my daughter. She was sitting at my table, my laptop open in front of her. I don't remember crossing the lawn. 1 second I was at the fence. The next, I was at the front door, keys in my hand, heart hammering so hard I could hear it. I unlocked it and stepped inside. The smell hit me first. Lemon cleaner. Claire used to use the same one every Saturday morning. For 1 stupid second, I almost expected to hear her in the kitchen. Instead, I heard Ellie gasp. She was sitting exactly where I'd seen her, my laptop open, her fingers frozen over the keyboard. Ryan was standing beside the fridge, a beer in his hand. Nobody moved. Then Ryan spoke first. "You can't just barge in." I looked at him. "It's my house." He put the bottle down slowly, trying to stay calm. "Tom, mate, you're upset. You need to leave. Don't call me mate." Ellie stood up. Her face had gone pale. "Dad." "No." My voice cracked so sharply even I barely recognized it. "You don't get to call me that right now." I walked to the table. On the laptop screen was my banking portal. Transfer amount, $63,000. Destination account already entered. I turned the screen toward her. "What is this?" She didn't answer. "Ellie, what is this?" Her eyes filled instantly. She'd always been able to cry on command. As a kid, it got her out of broken windows and school suspensions. Tonight, it just made me feel sick. "It's not what you think." Ryan cut in. "Tom, you're making this worse than it is." I looked at him. "You forged my signature." He laughed once, short and ugly. "You can prove that?" That was the moment something changed in me. Not rage, clarity. I pulled out my phone. "I don't need to." I pressed play. Their voices filled the kitchen. Ryan laughing. Ellie asking what if I checked the accounts. Ryan saying your dad still thinks you're 12. For the first time all night, Ryan lost color. Ellie stared at me like she'd stopped breathing. "You recorded us," she whispered. "No," I said. "I heard you." The silence after that felt enormous. Then Ellie started crying properly. "Dad, please, please just let me explain." "Go on." She wiped her face, but wouldn't look at me. "It started with Ryan's investment. He said it was temporary. He said we'd pay it back before you noticed." Her voice shook harder. "Then the repayments got bigger. Then he said if we could borrow against the house." "Borrow?" I laughed, and it came out broken. "You had a doctor ready to call me senile." Her head snapped up. That wasn't my idea, Ryan muttered. For God's sake. I turned to him. Get out. He folded his arms. I'm not going anywhere. I stepped closer. Out. He held my stare for 2 seconds, then he smiled. A slow, cold smile. You really want the truth, old man? Ellie whispered. Ryan, don't. But he was already talking. She came to me, not the other way around. She wanted money. She wanted out of here. She said living around your grief was like drowning. He tilted his head, said ever since your wife died, all you did was sit around pretending the world stopped with her. Ellie burst into tears. Stop. But I couldn't hear her anymore. Every word hit like glass. Ryan kept going. She said you looked at her and only ever saw Claire. I turned to my daughter. Is that true? She covered her mouth, didn't answer. And that was answer enough. I felt something collapse inside me. 28 years of school pickups, birthday cakes, scraped knees, night shifts, university fees, funerals, Christmas mornings. Gone. Then headlights swept across the front window. A car had pulled up outside. There was a hard knock at the door, and when Ellie looked up, terrified, she said the last thing I expected. Dad, I didn't call them. The second knock was harder. Ryan moved first. For half a second I thought he might run. I opened the door. 2 police officers stood under the porch light. Behind them, a woman in a navy blazer stepped out of a dark sedan parked at the curb. Mr. Lawson? One officer asked. Yes. The woman came forward. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, leather folder tucked under her arm. My name's Laura Bennett, Financial Crimes Unit. Everything inside me went still. She glanced past me into the hallway, straight at Ellie and Ryan. We've been trying to contact you since this afternoon, she said. There's been an ongoing fraud investigation connected to a development company in North Sydney. Your address came up tonight. Ryan's face changed. Not fear. Recognition. Ryan Mercer? Laura said. He didn't answer. You'll want a solicitor. The officer stepped past me. Ryan backed away. This is ridiculous. Laura opened the folder. 3 forged loan applications. 2 elderly victims in Newcastle. 1 in Wollongong. And tonight, an attempted transfer from Mr. Lawson's account. She looked at Ellie. We also have messages. Ellie went white. No, she whispered. Ryan turned on her so fast it made me flinch. You stupid idiot. That was when I understood. Not because of what he said, because of the way Ellie looked at him. Not guilty. Terrified. Laura's voice cut through the room. Miss Lawson came to us yesterday. I stared at my daughter. Ellie's eyes flooded. He told me he'd fix it, she said, words breaking apart. He said if I pulled out, he'd tell police I forged everything. He said I'd lose Mia. Mia, my granddaughter, 7 years old, missing front tooth. Obsessed with dolphins. The only reason Ellie had ever sounded truly alive these last few years. He used her, Ellie said. He said if I didn't help, he'd make sure I never saw her again. Ryan lunged toward her. The officers had him against the wall before he made 2 steps. He shouted all the way out to the car. Then the house went silent. Laura gave me a card. We'll need a statement tomorrow, but tonight, lock your accounts. And don't sign anything. Then she left. The front door clicked shut. And suddenly it was just me and Ellie. My daughter stood in the middle of the kitchen, shaking so hard she had to hold the chair. I looked at her and for a second I saw every version of her at once. 6 years old under the jacaranda tree. 16. Screaming because I wouldn't let her go to Byron with older kids. 28. Standing at Claire's funeral with mascara running down her face. And now this stranger. Dad, she whispered. I held up my hand. No. She stopped breathing. You don't get to cry now because he got caught. My voice was calm. That scared me more than shouting would have. You lied to me. You watched me sleep in the cold. You let me think I'd lost my mind. She dropped into the chair and covered her face. I know. No, I said. You don't. I picked up my bag from beside the door. I'm signing the house over to a trust for Mia. Not you. She'll get it when she's old enough. Ellie looked up sharply. And you? She asked. I looked around the kitchen one last time. Claire's lemon cleaner, my old table, the walls that had heard every laugh, every fight, every birthday candle. Then I looked at my daughter. For the first time in years, I said, I'm finally leaving because I chose to. I stepped outside just as dawn began to break over Parramatta. Behind me, Ellie started sobbing, but I didn't turn around, because the hardest thing I ever learned was this. Sometimes the people you die for are the very people you have to survive.